Welcome, Immortalites, to another round of the conversations. Today's guest has done a mind-boggling amount of fascinating things. So simply, I'm just going to welcome Adam Curry in the morning. Adam,
in the morning to you, Kyron. It's good to put a face to the voice. I've never seen you, so I've only seen weird images that you do of yourself and other people on your chapters.
That's how you draw them in, Adam. That's where you get the big followership. I'm certain of it.
You really have the album art and the chapter art. You have that down to a science. I'm very proud of the work you've done.
Yeah, the main trick is it needs to be unpolished. Like, it can't be too good. It needs to be rather crappy, and that one saves me a lot of time. But then I think there's something inherently satisfying with looking at something it's not cropped correctly and you're like, I can see he's put in maybe like 5 minutes of work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I like it a lot. It's very funny.
Thank you. Well, there'll be plenty appearing in this one as well, so stay tuned, people. Ever since I first encountered you, and I'll maybe talk about that in a little bit, but there was one burning question that I came since the first encounter, which was, what factors and considerations are there once buying a castle? Is it the amount of turrets it has? Is it the square inch of peasants per view from the top? Is it the ferocity of the alligators in the moat? The cleanliness of the moat water? Like, what goes into that?
In this particular case, it's even worse than that. I was looking for an appropriate castle where I could land my helicopter, and that was the main reason for the choice. And
it was there's 15th century knights and whatnot. We're really thinking about the helicopter access. How insensitive of them.
In fact. This was a castle-let. It was not a huge castle, but it was definitely, part of a network of castles.
For sure. So where actually was it? I know it was
I was in Belgium.
Antwerp. Yeah,
I was in Belgium, below Antwerp. And the funny thing about it is there's a lot of these old buildings there that before that area became attractive to live, there was, establishments where people would basically go and have sex, like they call it the sex farm. And there was one wing of the castle that was a lot of small rooms next to each other, and there was also a bar in this castle. So I have a pretty good feeling it was one of these sex operations.
Okay, so suspiciously placed holes in between the rooms as well, and
no, nothing like that. But there was just some obvious stuff. Like, okay, so we remodeled some of that. Goes without saying.
So essentially, you bought a very fancy brothel.
Precisely. At the time, this is many lifetimes ago for me. We had come back from the United States. There was just a lot going on. A lot of people knew that we were there. There was, it was kind of like end of the 90s, still celebrity, all the newspapers, people trying to get pictures. And it was kind of a mess. And we were in Amsterdam, and my wife is even more, my ex-wife is even more famous, my wife then at the time. And so we decided to get a place in Belgium and be able to kind of go away from all the noise. And that's when, okay, well, that sounds cool, but that would be even cooler if we could fly there from Amsterdam with a helicopter. So we need to have a place where we can land the helicopter. And
Absolutely.
so that, but these were all rich boy problems back when I had a lot of money. By the way, that's a really cool way to get rid of your money, is to buy a castle and helicopters.
I agreed. I would completely agree with that. The only thing that could maybe top it is like going into space and doing some moon stuff.
Yeah, this had some utility. I learned how to fly helicopters. That was a bonus. It was a very expensive lesson. And also, I think because of being there, and who knows? I mean, any factor changed, and I probably might not have come up with podcasting. It was the right setting to be thinking about stuff, and so it was important.
Yeah,
at the time.
Absolutely. So, so the first place I actually did encounter you, and this might be slightly novel for you, was through Joe Rogan's show. So your first appearance there. And I watched that and I was just like, man, this dude is the coolest motherfucker out. Like, and it's not related to even the main stuff, I guess you've done, like, you know, the Podfather MTV things. It was like the small touches, you know, creating your own software for a hearing aid and being like, fuck it, you guys don't know what you're doing. Like, I'll create my own and I'll be able to spy on people with it, like listen big distances. I thought that was so cool, man. So cool. And fortunately, you know, that led me to when James Cridlin offhand mentioned you somewhere, I was like, oh, I'll check it out. And hence I found podcasting 2.0 and dived into that world. So I hope to not be able to ask too many of the same questions you've been repeated.
You've promised me a completely different interview experience, so I expect nothing less.
Of course, nothing less from us here. And the main thing I really think that's got me excited, and there was a period when I first found your show, the Podcasting 2.0, where I had to watch it all. And I must confess, Adam, I did listen to you on 1.25, 1.5 speed because I wanted to get it all super quick. So I was like, I'm missing out. Like, unless I'm right at the bleeding edge again, like it's not good.
People would need to understand that I am not a proponent of speed listening to podcasts. I understand, and obviously from a technological standpoint, it's very logical and valid that it's done. But I feel that it's my art, and I want my art to be consumed the way I produced it. To me, it's like going to the Louvre and jogging past the Mona Lisa. You know, it's like you're missing. The pauses are important too.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I also think just my thoughts are, if you're listening to anything 1.25, 1.5, it's sort of like a decision each day to maybe make yourself a bit more stressed, because people don't naturally talk that fast. And so that sort of drives you in that mindset of like, things got to be happening now, like really quickly. I see it as like turning up my stress dial from, you know, maybe if it's at like a 3 to a 3.1 or 3.2, if I'm doing that every day.
That's an interesting point. That would be research worthy to find out if speed listening, if that does elevate your stress levels or perhaps resize your amygdala. Who knows?
For sure. If there's any scientists out there, you're welcome. You can have that one.
Just put us in the study. So,
exactly.
We look cool.
Co-author at least.
Yeah, exactly.
What really drew me in, and what made me so excited, was the value for value model that you were talking about, and that's where I want to spend, I suppose, like the first half of this conversation, because just to frame it, I sort of want to use this as like an explanation, a tutorial, and honestly some selfish learning for myself. And I think a good place to kick off would be if you would just mind giving a quick overview of it, and then we can maybe deep dive into it and deconstruct it a little bit.
In the digital realm, with media, Silicon Valley has forced us into a pricing mechanism in which we have no part. And this is most prevalent with music. It started with, I would say, arguably in mass scale, iTunes. And a decision was made, songs are 99 cents. Now that has varied a little bit over time. But, you know, just in one go, and I use this example a lot, the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I think it's the best love song ever written. Simple. Everyone the world over can sing it. You get it right away. And I'd pay $99 every single time. You know, I want to, it gives me that much satisfaction. It would feel great. And this turns out is not just Adam who feels this way. But we have no other way than to go with the pricing mechanism of Silicon Valley. And this is all forms of art. The same for apps, for smartphone apps, 99 cents. Yeah, you can vary it, but that was set very, very early on. And that was just that pricing was just hammered into everybody's head. I have a background in a way, community organizing, just by the sheer fact that I've done radio all my life. So when you're doing radio, and real radio for me was theater of the mind, you know, so no one really knows what the studio looks like. No one really knows really what I look like at that moment or what's going on. And so you kind of create a vibe, and we had a feedback mechanism that was the phone, you know, usually for people calling in, trying to be caller 100 to win some, you know, stupid concert tickets. But but also I've done a lot of nonprofit work. In fact, my wife, Tina, the keeper, she is a semi-retired chief communications officer for Ronald McDonald House Charities in Central Texas. Actually, she's fully retired from that, but she's kind of semi-retired from the business. And even just living with her for the past 6.5 years, but before then, I knew I was always interested in the Form 990s and how nonprofits work and just how it works. How do you raise money? And so I've been a part of a lot of money raising campaigns for many nonprofits. And it's interesting. I've in all my commercial businesses, and I've had a couple, I've always said, if you want a great salesperson, you need to get someone who's in nonprofit because they really know how to do it. They tell a story. And when John C. Dvorak and I started the No Agenda podcast, now in its 15th year, we decided pretty early on that we wanted to get paid because it turned out to be kind of work. And, we didn't want to live off of it, but we felt that something should come back. And we said, we actually did start off with like, hey, at least $2 an episode should be worth something. So you make $2 an episode times whatever at the time we had listening. It was, okay. Really, there's really not much. But then we decided as a part of the overall show, we're going to open everything. We're open sourcing the entire program. That means you can use any of the clips that we play. I started structuring the data in XML. So you can use that data somewhere else. People are building websites all of a sudden. Turns out if you give away stuff, without expecting anything in return, which is part of where value for value comes from. Like, here's some valuable stuff. You want to do anything with it? And people went off and created things like search engines and really phenomenal pieces that contributed to the show. Along with that, and also we noticed people started doing art for us, album art, and there was a healthy competition, and someone built a website, the No Agenda Art Generator. So we would have a place we could choose, everyone could upload to the same place so we could choose the art from. And when it came to supporting it financially, I think the first story that I told, knowing that stories work, is, okay, we've just been talking for the past hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours. You could have gone to the movie theater, taken a date, had a drink and a popcorn, and it would have been about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Money cost you $50. Was this experience worth it? And right away, after that first episode, we got a lot of people sending us $50. A lot of them still, a lot sending $5, but some sent $500. And we're like, what? How does this even work? And as we started to because part of the model is this really transparent. So when someone sends in $500 with a note, we say, thanks for the $500. And here's what the note reads, and which in turn also became content because, as it turns out, people who are in a listening audience aren't just, NPCs. They're actual people with expertise. Everyone has an expertise in something. And when they know there's a way to get the information in, and we've gotten pretty good at that throughout the time, then now you're in a very active loop that went far beyond anything which we could do on the radio before email, and people were sending postcards. That's no good. So it was very immediate. And so we kind of kept going with that message of like, well, what is this show worth to you? So to me, the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, $99. I pay it. You don't even have to ask me. I'll just pay it. Let it be open. For someone else, 99 cents might be the huge amount of value for their pocketbook. This is the beauty of it. Everyone gets to price their own value into the model. And
it might even be too much, because if it's 99 cents and it's too much and you do pay it, you'll sort of feel a little bit of resentment as well, because you won't be able to enjoy it as much. You're like, oh, I'd have rather paid half that.
The mechanism, there's something in human nature which I haven't really come across a good explanation of it. I used to be friends with a brain scientist professor, but I don't know. We fell out. I was too annoying probably with my questions. So I wish I could ask someone, but there's something, it has partially to do with philanthropy. We want to give, we want to help. We understand when someone gives something to us and explicitly states, hey, I'm giving this to you. we feel we want to do that person a solid and give them something back. And it could be 5 months down the road. Tom lent me his grass mower. I'm going to go help him string up his Christmas lights, something like that. That's the value for value is kind of implied, and we all understand that pricing mechanism based upon what we can do and our own interactions, what we know about each other.
There's some deep psychology there, and that's,
I think so.
It would be fascinating to have a psychologist, I suppose. Hit up Jordan Peterson if you can and get him to get his thoughts on it.
I mean, it started to work, and as we built out the model, again, the transparency is right there. We tell everyone exactly what's coming in. Everyone can do the numbers. We've had in this past year, someone did a $10,000 donation in one go, and old Adam from 14 years ago would say, "Oh my God, we're going to read this. No one's going to donate." Be like, those guys got enough. They don't need any more money for that stupid podcast. But that's not how it works. People say, well, that's great. That's incredible that you could give that much value. I can only do this much, but I feel equally as good. And now these segments, which now you're into it, creating content out of a donation segment, which I think works quite well. And that is mainly dependent upon what people are sending as fun. There's a lot of humor out there, a lot of funny notes, but also a lot of knowledge, that people have something important they want to say, a lot of personal stuff. Just, I don't know. Again, it's a part of the communications of the community that you're able to bring together, and people just seem to like it. And then they start doing numerology, and that blew my mind. People like, here's a boob donation, the old calculator jokes, 8008. Okay, meanwhile, thanks, $80.08. Damn, I like this numerology. The magic number is 33. What's the most important number in the universe? Number 42, 420, April 20th. You can count the $420 donations. So it works. And when people don't find value in something, they don't send money. So it's the most purest form of reward, where if we're just not hitting it for everybody, then it will end. And As long as that loop keeps going, then it's all good, I guess. Everyone's getting value out of it. And this has expanded way beyond the podcast. We have no agenda meetups, where it's completely producer organized. And by producer, I mean our listeners. They're not listeners anymore. They're all producers. And we address them as such. And they, 10, 20, 30 people getting together just on a Saturday afternoon, just all different ages, races, religion, you name it, backgrounds, societal levels, everything across the board. With one thing in common: value for value, media deconstruction, the No Agenda Show. We have a little language in the morning. Thank you for your courage. We have all our little vocabulary. It's a club. It's a club. It's a tribe. It's a cult. It's a religion, whatever you want to call it. It's a group of human beings who just want to hang out. And for some who've had real problems during the lockdowns around the globe, by the way, this isn't, we have people meeting in Australia all the time. Even when they're not supposed to, it's been really good for them. Everyone's really enjoyed human contact with people. Hey, that guy's not going to narc me out. That much I know. I may not agree with everything this guy's going to say, and I shouldn't, but we're safe. And that kind of network comes out of a value for value concept and thinking. And it has built upon itself with so many layers. You could do a documentary about it.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually going to say, the one problem with your analogy is when I go to the movies, I've got a chance of getting laid, but I believe people have actually met up at your meetups and whatnot and found significant others. So
that's true. That's true. But we, anyone who is between $200 and $300 donation becomes an associate executive producer. $300 and above, you're an executive producer for that episode. And these are real credits. You can go on IMDb, you'll see lots of real Hollywood names who have also become an executive producer, and they list it in their credits in IMDb. We say these are exactly like Hollywood. You get all the benefits of an executive producer, except you don't get to bang the actors. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same. But you're right. Dame Jennifer recently found new love at a No Agenda meetup. People are helping each other with jobs. I mean, this is a very interesting time. And it's not like we're all a bunch of anti-vaxxers or deniers or whatever. No, far from it. Everyone's got different opinions. We just haven't gotten the mass hypnosis or the mass formation programming, and we're not angry, and we're not crazy, then and we're not alone, and that's the main thing. And so that's really, it's been that way since the beginning, because we distance ourselves from mainstream media and we discuss it because we can show you the bullcrap that it is. But now it's even more pronounced, of course, where it's gotten pretty bad.
For sure. You mentioned the beginning there, and I think that's a really good place to just kick us off, and then we can maybe. I've sort of deconstructed my own little thoughts on your progression over the years, so it might be fun for you to hear an outside view of it. So you started on October 26, 2007 with No Agenda, and you'd done a lot of podcasting related stuff before that, and obviously for 5+ years or 4+ years. Pre No Agenda, was there any origins, or did you have any historical examples, I suppose, to give you faith of when you were starting it? Because you didn't start off as a value for value. You and John just started chatting into a microphone like most podcasters start off with.
No, quite the opposite. My entire career up until then, and I had a couple careers by that time, including a company I took public in the early internet days in the mid-90s. I was used to doing programs on the radio or television and getting paid reasonably handsomely. So it was quite the opposite. In fact, the hardest part, it's a little more commonplace now, but the hardest part for someone who comes from a mainstream, here's a bunch of money, you just do the show, we own you perspective, asking someone to send you money was like a defeat. It's like, oh my God. And, in the beginning when we were pioneering this is before Patreon, all this stuff. People would make jokes about us, say, oh, you're begging for money again. Oh, there they go, begging for money, beggars. And it was really hard. So to get that pitch right, it's not just send me money. That doesn't work. You've got to ask. You have to ask. And you can ask the right question anytime at the right time. But you have to ask it in the right way. And it's really, now John always has good examples. He said, there's this butcher shop up in Port Angeles, Washington. And he really loved the butcher shop, but he didn't go very often. He's like, I'll go next time. He never went. And then one day it was gone. And, he said that really taught him that he regretted that. And when you tell this story, lots of people have stories just like this. So if there's something you really like, you support it. And you should do that in everything in your life, and you can compare it to the thing that comes closest, although I disagree with the analogy of, or the comparison of tipping, leaving a gratuity. That is a true value for value, but it's on top of something. And I don't like to think that the value you're giving me is just a tip. A tip is something you give someone because they did a good job, but they're already getting paid. Except in America, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, there's some nuances to that. I'll jump into that soon.
So I think value for value, it can be for music, it can be for books, it can be for anything. And you get the beauty of the old system, which is you want to have as many people see, read, hear your art as possible. Every artist wants that. In the Silicon Valley mechanism and the mainstream mechanism, you either have to go through a gatekeeper who takes all your money and controls you, or you have to hand over an exorbitant amount of control and money to Silicon Valley. And now it's all within your own grasp. You determine how you send the message across, and it's completely open. You can do anything you want. It's just you have to get over that hump, and you have to say, "Hey, help me out." You have to have an outstanding product. I'd have to say that's upfront. This will not work for everybody, but that's not quality or anything like that. An outstanding product is a product that people want to listen to. So you get your benefit. Everybody can listen to it. 1 to 4% will actually support you, and you'll be okay with that. And that support will either be right for you for the amount of effort that goes into it, or it won't. And then you'll stop, or the programming won't be good enough for people to support it. And we'd have a lot less podcasts listed at podcastindex.org if everyone were doing this, were measuring themselves by value for value. They'd stop. Like, okay, no one cares.
Yeah, for sure. I actually sort of thought of it as, if someone's interested in value for value and wanting to implement it, there's a yes-no barrier that you have to cross. I fortunately have crossed that one. And you mentioned it was hard, which is just the simple act of asking.
Did it feel weird to you? Did it feel weird to ask? 100%.
And I didn't even come from a media background or anything. This is just me not,
did it feel like you were begging? Life. Did it feel like you were a beggar? Or
I think at the start it sort of did, but yeah, there's as you mentioned,
pathetic loser begging for money on a podcast. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And then, once you cross that, I think you've reached 1%, and now you've got 99% to go until you've probably found a value for value system that will work for you. I guess just going back to those early days as well, though. When you started off and you're just doing it kind of for fun, and you're having these chats with John, and then you're realizing it's more work and whatnot. It was roughly a year and a half later. So I think it was 1st of Feb 2009 when you started to switch to 2 shows. Did you start to treat it differently then because of did you sort of get serious and then value for value came after that? Or you started to implement value for value and then it's like, oh shit, I need to start getting serious?
What was the date when we went to 2 shows a week?
1st of Feb 2009, I believe.
It was around that time. There were 2 things that happened. 2 things that happened. I remember, I think I was in New York, and maybe we're still doing 1 show. And look, we were just doing the show just to do the show. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed what people were sending back. We enjoyed challenging each other. That's kind of how we got to know each other. So it was not about living off of this or anything. We just wanted to be compensated fairly. And I remember I was in a hotel room on business in New York, and John called me up. Already rare that he would call me for any reason. And he says, we got $2,000 this week for the show. I said, wow, holy crap. He says, this is real. He says, we can make this really work. We can really build this out. And I said, okay, let's do it. He said, and I think maybe that right there, or maybe thereafter, let's go 2 shows a week. The 2 shows a week was because, and we had discussed this many times previously, was because you have to be in the news cycle. You have to have enough days to deconstruct it, to get clips, to do stuff, to think about it, to investigate. And then, you need to kind of get the information out. If you have to wait, 6 days, it just didn't work with the news cycle. We knew we had to have 2. We even tinkered with, maybe even once did 3, and that didn't work. That failed. Like, no, we can't do that. And we did use that as a pitch for a long time. Hey, you want this 3 days a week, 3 days a week? And it was kind of cool because people were upping the ante. Let's do 3 a week. And then we said, no, we can't do it. and they're like, okay, that's fine. They didn't care.
Offering it up. And then as soon as it comes, you take it away.
Yeah, no, but no one, we've always gone up 5% year over year. It's a very slow grow. It's slow, but it's consistent, and it feels so good. Every Thursday and Sunday morning, Tina and I, we say to each other, thank you, Gitmo Nation.
for sure.
When we get the donations in, like, oh my God, we eat again. Thank you. It's a very, it's almost a spiritual experience knowing that all these people are supporting you with whatever value they feel they can contribute because of the value they receive. It's like every day my job is validated. To me, it just feels so good. I love my job. I really love it.
Yeah. One of the questions I did have for you was, is there any risk, or did you ever find yourself, I'm going to use the word entitlement because I can't think of a better one, or you take it for granted, you know, because once you do something enough times, it can become repetitive. So you've honed your pitch down really well, but there's a risk of that becoming blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Here's my request. Can you please do this? Did you ever feel that entitlement creeping in? Is there anything you do to stop that creeping in?
When it comes to my broadcast work, I don't think there's been a single time I have ever not shown up prepared, excited, and ready to go. I just love it. At MTV, it was a lot more autopilot just because of the sheer volume of work that we were outputting. But I was still always prepared. It's just what I do. I get up at the right time on a show day for whatever it is. I have a routine. I have a lot of OCD issues, a lot of superstitions, a lot of things that have to be just right. That's just my process. I also never really partied, I just wanted to be a great broadcaster. So kind of boring, but, so entitlement, no. In other things, different jobs that I had, yeah, that's crept in, or I like, just another day at the office. But with this, no, never. I've never taken any of my broadcast work for granted.
Yeah, okay. And, that might be due to the almost responsibility or the impact it has, because, from what you were saying about it and why I got so interested was your enthusiasm about it. It wasn't you weren't taking it for granted. So yeah.
Well, I started when I was 14, and I honed my craft throughout the past 40 plus years, and every single time I sit down, there's something new I'm going to learn about a way I want to do something, or how I want something to sound, or how I want it to flow. I mean, there's a lot of timing involved, particularly with the No Agenda show, anticipating when to start the clip, when John is just finishing with his last words, taking, half a second of delay into account. He also anticipates and starts to answer things I'm saying or a question I'm asking before I'm actually finished, anticipating the delay in the technology. This is it's an actual sport. I mean, it takes a lot of concentration. I mean, I have a desk that up. I have to stand during certain segments. If I'm doing donation segments, I need to be able to project in a lot of energy, or the knighting ceremonies. I need to stand for that. So it's always a fun challenge. I've always thought, okay, I can't wait. What's going to happen in this show?
Yeah. If anyone's doubting that, I suggest look at your YouTube channel, and you've got 2 videos on there. One explaining your process, and then one I think it's called like making the sausage or creating the sausage or something.
That's one of during the live show, I showed my screen and my hands and what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was intense. I watched that and was like, oh shit, what am I getting myself into?
Again, 40 years of practice. So
Of course. The next sort of period I thought was, I'd maybe call it like the refinement period. So you switched
the refinement era.
Yes. Yeah. I'm creating. There was the Picasso, the Impressionism. Now we're
nice.
deconstructing.
I'm liking it.
You've become an art piece.
I already know what the album art's going to look like. The chapter, Picasso's. Squares and triangles. Mm-hmm.
And so I'd call this period, the decade of I guess like hard work that comes after you've decided like, oh, okay, I'm going to go full time. Let's start working on this. I wanted to ask, has it been a continual addition? Because I'm guessing when you first started, it was pretty rudimentary. It was, hey, send us through some cuck bucks, although you weren't calling it then.
No.
Has it always been an addition, or have there been any missteps you've taken and gone like, oh, I thought this would work, and then that ended up incentivizing the wrong thing for people, or creating things I wasn't expecting?
When we started to really go full time, I still had my health insurance paid by my company in San Francisco, Mevio at the time. I had $100,000 in savings, and I had a Cessna 182 retractable gear, which I was very fond of. And so I lived off of all of that as we built the value for value model. And moving to Texas was part of that, because there was no good vibe for me in California. And I really loved Austin at the time, but also significantly lower tax structure. So that also helped. Thank you, state of Texas, no state income tax. And all of that went away, I'd say probably about 10 years ago. And it's just been all value for value since then. And I don't think I've had any other side gigs or anything. I've just lived off of this. I don't live crazy. When I met Tina, it was a perfect match because she helped me square away some financial stuff and save a little bit of money. And she brought money to the relationship. We bought a house together. We sold that house with great profit in Austin, bought the farm, moved out. And so, so now we're pretty good. And I can keep doing this for the rest of my life. It's a good situation.
For sure. I should have framed that a little bit better, because I didn't mean to ask about your IRS and all that.
No, but this is, I'm happy to tell you, because it did take a bit. It took a bit to get that going.
Yeah. What I was really trying to get at was the addition to the value for value process. So when you first start, I imagine it was pretty rudimentary. Hey, can you send us in some things? But then you started to implement different technologies. So the chat room, the troll room, you started to create, proper segments, and then the value feedback loop. And you were, I guess, continually tinkering and adding more things to the model, I guess. Were there missteps with that? Were there things, that you did wrong? And, perhaps you're like, oh, send me through your, I don't know, technology or something. And then or like maybe some microphones or things like that. And then people are sending things through, but having an expectation of you shilling their product, for example, or things like that. Any missteps you've made with the actual process of creating value for value?
Well, first, all of these things you mentioned, those were pretty much most. I wish we could take all the credit, but the producers have come up with most of the ideas. The chat room was Void Zero. He also built an entire infrastructure for us, has run it for free for 14 years. We pay maybe $600-700 a month in server fees, which is very low considering the amount of bandwidth we push. All these websites, I never asked anyone to do anything. They said, hey, look what I built, man. Remember, we gave away all the stuff. We said, use the name, use the logo. We don't have a logo. Create a logo. Screw someone else's logo. Do whatever you want. The best example was No Agenda Shop. These guys, they know how to make T-shirts, mugs, hoodies, hats. They know how to do it cost effectively. They said, look, we'll talk to the artists. Whatever we make, we'll take a third. The artist takes a third. We'll donate the rest of the show. We've never had an agreement with them, never signed a piece of paper. They just send money. And we've never audited them. I don't care. It's the honor system. So with that, sometimes you get people who do overpromise. And we have had some experiences particularly with fulfillment items that don't get fulfilled. And so we can't be a part of anything that anyone's going to fulfill. Now, if you if you say, hey, here's this product I'm working on, and you send us a donation, we'll read your note. We're not going to read an ad, and we'll call you out on it too. Thank you for your $300. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read your whole menu of your restaurant. No, but I will tell people about it and go check it out. We'll look at the website, so we're very honest about that. So have there been any real missteps?
I was going to say, fuck off to the fulfillment. I'm still waiting on my podcasting 2.0 shirt.
Well, that's because of where you're living, brother. We can't send anything right now. It's like the postal service won't deliver. Is FedEx delivering? I don't think so. Something's not that no one's delivering.
Yeah, I am very distrustful of the Australian Post Office anyway. So
yeah. No, but I know we have a couple to deliver to Australia, and it's been a problem. So no, it's also in a way because the system is based on zero expectation. I don't expect you to donate. I don't expect you to do anything. You should expect yourself to do something. So it's a no expectation model, only gratitude. If someone says, hey, I don't have any money, but I really don't. I don't even have $1. There's plenty of people who are homeless. I've sent them money. But they'll be sending me notes from the road and all kinds of stuff. And, we call it the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. You can contribute in many, many ways, but we're real honest about it. We got bills too. So, and if the bills are low, and we have worked very hard on our particular version of the model. And, if donations are not good, we'll be honest about it, and we'll throw the sad puppy on the newsletter. It's like, that works. It's like a bat signal. People are like, oh shit, wow, the guys are in trouble. But they know we're not lying about it because they can count it. They can listen to the actual numbers. So it's so irrelevant. The money part is so irrelevant at this point for me because of all the other things that come along with it. And which is interpersonal. I'm also 57 now, so you care more about these things. It's a way of life. It's like the other day, he's a friend, but he helped with hang something up, and it was a lot of work. And we're like, no, we want to give him something. He's like, no. I said, no, this is value for value, man. You got to understand. You didn't tell me a price. I'm going to just give you something because I love you. It happens to be 40 AR shells. It's about $35. So sure. But it was that's value for value. That's a way you can live.
Yeah. I've always said the money aspect. Like I feel like I'm doing things right with money if it's exceedingly boring. So if I'm getting exciting about something, that probably means I'm making some stupid decisions. So
that's a very healthy way of looking at it, and it's coming from someone who had a lot of money. And I literally burned it in the sky on jet fuel. I have no regrets. Had a good time doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah. You sort of referred to it then, but how much of it would be conscious testing? So you're noticing, okay, like there's a dip in donations this week, or maybe I'm struggling with something. I need someone, maybe there's just not as much interest in the show or something. How much would it be of you consciously testing, like, I'll refine my pitch. So I'll do the value for value segment maybe a little sooner than I'm used to, or maybe we'll make it longer, or maybe I'll use certain words to, maybe I'll threaten people this time instead of taking a more softer approach. How much of it would be you consciously altering and playing with it to, enhance it, I guess?
Secret weapon of our model is the newsletter. So we have a show twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays. So on Wednesdays and Saturdays, a newsletter goes out. And this newsletter is, we always joke, and we do that publicly, it better not contain news, because if it contains actual content and news, then the donations will be very poor for the next show. It's just a fact. Have we tested it? Yeah, it doesn't work. Does it work if we say, here's the highlights of what we're going to do, and here's a funny meme, and here's some crazy shit, and here's a research article to look at, all these different things, and donate. The whole purpose of the newsletter is to remind people there's a show tomorrow. And that is extremely effective. John runs the newsletter. I have very little input. That's one of his professions. He is definitely testing stuff all the time. What are the opens? How did it work? How did that, he's coming up with ideas. Palindrome Day, we just had one recently. 12th of the 2nd of December. So 1202, etc. He's always coming up with what he calls gags. Like, let's see if this gag entices people. Because if you give people a reason, oh yeah, that's right. It's value for value. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, and here's a fun number, and I'm going to add a different 2 digits behind the decimal. Like a 33 or a 69. I'm going to do something fun to add to it, and then we'll read the note, and everyone's happy, and the bills get paid, and the show continues. Now, when it comes to the format and the flow of the show, this has morphed continuously over time, and is something that I do on the fly, pretty much at my discretion, when we break for the first donation segment. For a long time, it was around an hour. Pretty much, 1 hour, boom, we're going to do a donation segment. That's about 20 minutes. And then we go back and we do another 45 minutes. And then we do the birthdays and the meetups and the knighting ceremony and meetup reports, which is pretty new. I love that. People sending in audio of everyone saying hi. It's a classic radio thing. People love that. And then we have end of show mixes, and maybe one or two clips at the end. If I know the donation segment's going to be long, because I always see the spreadsheet, I don't really read it. I look at how many entries we have to read and how long the notes are. That means I'm probably going to stretch the first segment long by up to an hour 20 or an hour 30, so that people really feel they got their content, because it usually goes hand in hand with a heavy day. So when COVID started, we were doing 3.5 hour shows easy. It's now 3 hours, 10 minutes, something like that. Still sometimes at 3:30. And that is, again, just 40 years of experience of when does it feel right? When does it feel right to break? What's a natural break? I mean, I'm always looking for, that perfect moment, and then John will say something, or it's a punchline, and when someone hits the punchline, oh, that's funny, I'm going to show my support by donating. Then you hit the jingle. So that's training. I've done that all my life. So that moves the show forward. John is also a radio guy, so he understands, and he knows when he hears that, he's going to shut up, because he's not going to step on the jingle. And then it's a skill. You learn it like anything else you do. Just do enough of it. So that's kind of how that flow works. Now, we're notorious for anything we say, oh, okay, here's a great idea. Let's try this. If we ever try that, it always fails. We always flood the lines. It's always stupid. And it becomes kind of a joke. It's like, oh, we're going to here's a great donation idea. Now it's pretty straightforward. The stories are real, though. I'm still going to tell you a story about why you should do this. That's shortened somewhat. And I think, if anything, I often say to myself, time to re-explain value for value. Let everyone know what's going on here. There are new people who came in, But I think that's also part of what the producers do. The producers, douchebag people. We didn't come up with that. Like, hey, you listen to the show, but you've never donated. You're a douchebag. And people will donate to call out their friends and family and loved ones as douchebags. It's funny, and clearly people like it. And we didn't create the jingle, someone else sent it in, and I don't even remember who did it. Douchebag. Which means that when someone, has been called out and like, oh, you're right, man, I got to donate to the show. They donate to the show and they say, I need a de-douching. And then you get this. You've been de-douched. This is not uncommon with entertainment products, that they have their own lingo. Look at Game of Thrones, the whole language I don't speak that people were talking about. Star Trek, But radio shows, Rush Limbaugh had ditto heads and feminazis and all this stuff. And Your Morning Zoo may have Bubba the Love Sponge. Every market has it. So these are very traditional kind of things that just work throughout the ages. And it's fun, and everyone gets it, and they feel comfortable, and I don't have to reinvent those wheels, because anything that needs reinventing, the audience themselves are doing it. And it's what's great about podcasting and all the feedback loops that we have. It's radio on fucking steroids. It's so cool.
Yeah. Is there anything you've really tried to force and it's maybe something you completely believed in, maybe it did work, or even vice versa, like it didn't work?
Well, the biggest thing I tried to force is I tried to make advertising change. That's what Pod Show was about. So that we need to do different kind of advertising. This is a different vehicle. You need to measure it differently. It's not going to be about how many downloads a show has. And I lost that spectacularly. It went straight to the old media models. And in this case, even worse, because you can't really measure traffic and et cetera, et cetera. I thought we could change advertising. Silly me.
Yeah, for sure. The last period, I guess, is the polishing, the curry polish period. And
polishing the knob. Yes. And this is where I'm wondering how applicable it is to other shows as well. So you've got, I guess, like 3 other shows now where you can say they're value for value. There's MoFax with Adam Curry. There's Podcasting 2.0, obviously, and hot off the press, Curry and the Keeper. Yes, and there's also With Adam Curry, which is very sporadic. So really, if I want to interview someone, I'll have a full interview on the podcast. This is With Adam Curry, like I did with Texas Slim recently, and I'll take clips from that and use it on No Agenda. Yeah,
I saw that one. I figured that was your show for like, God, I just want to talk to this person, but I don't have a real reason. Screw it, I've got a backup podcast that I can use.
No, it's actually, I really want to talk to this person. I can't find a good interview with them. So maybe if I interview them, then I can get some good clips for No Agenda. And then there's also a full on, at some point I had an idea of doing a whole series of With Adam Curry. And what happened is I met Mo, and so it became MoFax with Adam Curry. And, that show is all consuming. There's a lot of energy goes into it, certainly from Mo's side. So I, hopefully the new property, Curry and the Keeper, which is again just doing what I love, but now with my wife, who's also my best friend. And I think, and our premiere episode, the response is quite positive. I think we can deliver an interesting, entertaining product for a segment of the audience. I've noticed there's a lot of women, certainly who come into the No Agenda audience, like unbelievable influx. I think mainly lockdowns, families, things have changed, values have changed. A lot of the female producers are kick ass, by the way. They are researchers that, dedicated, don't waste your time, really impressive. And I think there's room for a true husband and wife, male, female conversation about, our own shit, but just also what's going on in the world. And I think that will be appealing to other men and women. And I don't really think it's out there, and we're not going to try and explain the news to you or anything like that. We want to talk about wine. We want to talk about our family, how we feel about stuff, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And Tina, I've been wanting to do this with her for so long. I love her voice. She's a great storyteller. So
yeah, she had a really nice voice for it. I was going to say, coming into it, I was like, no, Adam, don't do it, because every other podcaster I've seen who've done like an episode with their wife or partner has just been so cringe. But no,
totally cringe, right? Yeah. No, I know. But there's always that risk, of course.
Yeah.
Did you like it? What did you think?
Yeah. Hell yeah. It was fascinating, like getting the small inputs as well, the stuff that's outside, because even when you're doing No Agenda and it's your personality bleeds out into it, because you've done 1,500 episodes of how many hours is that? Thousands of hours. You can still be a different person in different contexts, I think. So I'm definitely, I'm still Karen, but when I'm with my parents, I'm slightly different than when I am with my friends and whatnot. So it's nice getting that other side of it, if you want. Well, perfect for someone like me who's, researching a shit ton for a podcast episode.
Yes, of course. Well, it's really nice because there's no room and no agenda for some of the things I want to talk about. And Tina and I talk about stuff all the time that is not no agenda related. And I think it will be interesting. And I think other people have something to say. Tina's done a lot of work too in media. We plan to have guests on, not in the studio, but I'm sure we'll have someone just calling in. It's just, also part of it was I wanted a complete clean slate virgin podcasting 2.0 experience from beginning to end. So setting up the feed, using the new tools with CurioCaster, only submitting through Podping to Podcast Index, using value for value in the boostagrams, and that the first. Have you ever seen the movie Middlemen?
Doesn't recall anything to me.
Okay, it's probably about 15 years old at this point, but it was about the two guys who set up the credit card processing service for porn websites back in the late 80s, early 90s. And these were two college dropout losers. They're in this shitty ass apartment they're drunk, they're doing coke. And so they set up this thing and they got, like a shitty ass screen. Long story short, they had a buzzer. So whenever someone used their service to sign up for a porn subscription, that meant $10 for them, and a buzzer went off. And so, the scene continues in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, this buzzer's going off. These guys like, holy shit, what's happening? So when we launched Curry and the Keeper with value for value enabled, I have running here a pre-release version of helipad. And helipad allows you to see your boostagrams, and these are small micropayments, actually larger micropayments, with a message attached to it. Think YouTube super chat, and they pop up, and you get a little. Actually, I have the sound effect here. So whenever a boostagram comes in, which is simultaneously a payment, you hear that. So we launch in the evening, and then it's like, yo, babe, did you hear that? Like, hold on a second. And you know that at that moment, people are listening and feeding back. And so we're like over to the laptop. This is cool. Look what they're saying. That was a mind-blowing experience to know immediately that people were listening, not just that, but they had something to say and felt like saying it and were willing to boost their way into our kitchen. And I can't wait to see how we can build out a true podcasting 2.0 value for value entertainment product.
Yeah. On a side note, for me, I love all the other tags that you've introduced. Like, I'm having so much fun with the chapters, as we've discussed before.
As we know, yes.
But the biggest thing for me and for my co-host Juan has been the boostagrams. Like, that is the game changer, and I'm so glad you and Dave are even working on that, to the detriment of cross-app comments and things like that, because I personally, for me,
you're really into it. Yeah, you're. I'm like, where's my cross-app comments? Damn it! Why aren't we doing this? But Dave really put the hammer down, man. He really kicked ass on building that software. It's really cool.
Yeah. No, and the reason it's important is, one of the things I have done basically since I started was, my version of marketing is, because I have an intense dislike of shilling and spamming, is I would go to like random podcasts and find them on Instagram, send them, like, review them on iTunes, send them a message, and then be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I really enjoyed this. I did this aspect was cool. And the problem with that, though, is, one, it feels weird, because I'm just sending them a message out of the blue. Even if they say, hey, hit me up on Instagram or send me a DM, it's still weird sending them that, because they just have no context. And I can't send a minute long thing being like, hey, I listened to this exact moment on this show, and this is why I'm responding. The other problem is that you will have instances where you send something, a thoughtful message, and you just don't know where it goes.
Right.
Did they see it? We were joking the other day that it was me thinking, it's probably a black box, but maybe everyone just hates me. And so that could be like, it's a possibility. I won't deny it. But the thing about boostagrams is it makes sense. It's so direct. It's going directly to the person. You can see where it is. It's the correct medium. It's within, like, it just ticks everything. So yes, I'm super, super happy that you guys are working on that. And then also that it's connecting those people who just have, lightning nodes and didn't even know about boostagrams. Because I've sent a bunch to the, I think maybe even Marty Bent. I'm not sure if he had the capability for boostagrams, and, I was sending through, but you just have no idea if it goes through, if they've acknowledged it, that sort of stuff.
So, this is all early days, obviously. And the only podcast that consistently has been able to read boostagrams initially is Podcast 2.0 podcast, Podland, Pod News. So it's just ramping up. The Satoshi Stream guys have been really great with their boostagrams through the Telegram bot service.
That's what I use.
That's been super, super helpful for just getting everybody started and going. But again, it's incredible early days. So there's so much more that we can do with this particular protocol. But there's something about, this is what they always wanted for email, right? It's like, we'll stop spam if you have to pay a penny for each email you send. Oh, that one spam would stop. So this is kind of it's a beautiful system. Even if you're sending one Satoshi, you're still you're sending some value. You can't do it without sending something. So you get to express yourself in multiple ways. I haven't received it yet, but I'm sure someone could send me one Satoshi with a "you suck." By the way, let's wait for the pew for that to come in. But you get to express yourself with numerology, with a value expression, with a whole bunch of things. We've talked summarily about a reply button. Why wouldn't I be able to reply to you so it pops up in your app like, oh, you got to reply to your boostagram? Technically, it's possible. We have so much we want to do, but this is a very, very important one. This is. The streaming Satoshis was already great, but the boost and then the boostagrams, I think that's the killer app here. Yeah,
for sure. That feedback loop is so beautiful, just the way it's been constructed. And like you said, there's so much more. Just before leaving value for value, I had a couple more that I wanted to ask. One being, I guess, maybe some just technical ones. Like, for example, do you think the live component is essential? So you've already mentioned how you couldn't even do really your news with only once a week with just the way the news cycle worked. You needed two. At the moment, for example, Juan and I record, and I like to do videos, and I like to properly edit the videos, and that actually takes up more time than the audio stuff for me because we do it outdoors. So I'm not super, there's only so much I can play with that audio without making it sound super weird. And we basically record, and then I release either 5 or 7 days later. That means that when someone sends a boostagram, they're going to get a lag of anywhere between 5 to 12 days. And I'm starting to notice that I think that's not super helpful. I think it needs to be a condensed time period. So I was just wondering, do you think it's important that the time period where you're acknowledging the receipt of the boostagram or of the value coming back in? Is there a period where it goes too long and it's just, people feel like they've been gypped in a way?
Well, if you're talking about live boostagrams, okay, a couple different things here. First, I prefer to produce in real time. So I want, I'm going to start the opening music. We're going to do the whole show. And we're going to end, and it's going to be done. And if there's something that needs to be adjusted or fixed, or if we had a dropout, go back and fix that. And then I want to turn it around and publish it and get it done with. Everything's fresh in my mind, the show notes, the feed. I do all that, ship it out, get it done. Miller time. The reason we do our No Agenda live is just another version of the feedback loop. Used to be 50 to 75 people sitting in the chat room. They can hear us live. So they're actually a resource for me. They feed me one-liners. I read jokes they make amongst each other. I'm like, oh, good, I'll steal that. I'm going to use that right now. I mean, this is training, so I can be talking to John, playing a clip, and seeing out of the corner of my eye. Maybe someone posted a link that is relevant. That's a part of that show's production. The boostagrams themselves, I think the most important thing you can do as a podcaster is to always try your utmost to release on the same day, approximately the same time. People start to adjust their lives to your schedule. So you have to, now it can be an hour early or late. That's not really here nor there. In fact, it builds anticipation. Ooh, wow, must be a long show. It hasn't been released yet, or whatever. But doing that consistently, so that means that people will have, 7 days in between to listen and to provide feedback through boostagrams, etc. So then the hybrid of that, which I would not advise, would be, okay, I mean, you post-produce, right? You do a lot of production. And of course, foolishly, you've been sucked into video. So, okay, fine. This is exactly why I won't do it, because it adds so much hassle to my life. I have no desire. And it's to our detriment. I know. I'm sure people would love to see two old dudes talking to something about it. Oh, well, that's great. I'm going to watch them instead of listen. I don't know why, but it works. So it's, you just do your, as long as you're releasing with the same frequency, I don't think it matters, because people certainly, when I say they adjust their schedule, so we do a show on Sunday, the majority of people listen on Monday on their way into work. So if we release Monday in the afternoon, that would be a problem. But if we release Saturday, it wouldn't be a problem, because they'd still listen on Monday. So but you want most people to know when to expect your episode. And with that comes all the feedback loops. And that's when it takes place. Even if they've supported it weeks beforehand, if they did it in a live show, it just wouldn't make sense, because then you need to turn around the show faster.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. Have you ever had any gaps in your schedule where you're on vacation or John's on vacation and you haven't been able to put out a show for that week or 2 weeks, however longer? And has
14 years. No, 14 years. And while we may not have always done a live show, we have always put out original content. Yeah.
Okay. Damn. That's impressive, man. That's true dedication.
Well, it's also, certainly 5-10 years ago, summer has hiatus before the streaming, it's hiatus. There's nothing. There's nothing on the radio. There's nothing on TV. It's just nothing. So, we might as well, if people might be looking for something to listen to on vacation or whatever. So we said, yeah, we should do that. We also work Christmas Day. If a show day is on Christmas Day, we work Christmas Day. If it's Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving. Now we have done, special shows, which are, compilations, edits, themes, all kinds of stuff, which we just put the work in at a different time. But we've never not put out a show, and it's never been a repeat.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if someone's coming in and they're just trying to understand, and is there anything you would say that like a way for them to understand what is just peculiar to you, i.e. the live aspects, the jingles, the dedouching, all the stuff built up into a No Agenda, and being able to separate that? I've got a list here that I might read out to you, and you could maybe give your approval or not. But do you, if someone was coming in and wanting to implement value for value, do you have any ways for them to know, like, oh no, this is just an Adam Curry thing, this isn't a value for value thing?
You mean in how in the ask?
In more like the way the show is produced. So they could be, for example, this is I'll just say me instead of they. When I'm watching, I'm like, how essential is the troll room to value for value? How essential is the live component? How essential is the jingles? Those are more technical things, and there's plenty of those which I'm not going to be good at.
I don't think any of it is essential. That's just what we've done. So everyone paints their own canvas. Your podcast, you start with your canvas and you bring your colors and maybe it's acrylics, maybe it's water paint, maybe it's different size brushes. You do your thing and it comes out. As an element of that, you've got to ask people to support you. Now, how that fits into your product, your art, is entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you explain the general concept, which is, I'm giving this to you. Anyone can consume this for free, no charge. I expect nothing, but take into consideration, if you want me to continue, please send some value back. And that can only be determined by you. Now, I'm a personal fan of closing that loop out in the open. So when people send in donations, read the amount, read the note. You got to work with everybody. Please don't send long notes, because then it's just going to suck for everybody else. And that evens out more or less. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And when people hear other people donating, guess what they have the urge to do?
Donate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no different than, this is the nonprofit part. It's the philanthropic part of our brain. It's a very normal thing. Just instead of saying this is $5 a month, pay up in advance, it's like pay as you go, pay what you like, pay what you feel. And that will let me know how I'm doing. But sure. The pitch has got to be uniquely everyone else's unique.
Yeah.
Their audience, etc.
There was one time where you were saying, like, sometimes you need to yell, swear, and threaten to get people motivated to participate, and I found that hilarious.
Well, that's the best part, is you can say, "Hey, people, you suck. You're not helping us out here," or that's a horrible note. It's way too long. You're ruining the show. People find that funny, but again, that may just be how we do it. I think people know us well enough. So no, I mean, everybody can find their own way of doing this. It's got to be a part of what you do. It's a part of, if you want to, podcasting cannot be like, the days of even now, you've got like a talk show host, and they'll come in, they've got producers, they've done everything's all set up. I know what copy I have to read for the ads, everything's set up, everything's good to go. I just come in, do my thing, take my check, and I leave. That's not podcasting. Even if you do a show like Serial, or if you do a true crime, all of this can easily have perfect value for value donation segments in them. And you don't have to thank everybody. You don't have to thank everyone down to the last dollar. We've totally gamified that with, if you donate $1,000 over your lifetime, you become a knight. We have a ceremony. You get a signet ring. You get sealing wax. You get all this, it's fun stuff. It's gamification. It's done everywhere, including games.
Who'd have thought it? I wanted to read out this list because I think it'd just be interesting, and it's a good little standalone piece, and maybe even you can add something to it at the end if I've missed something crucial. So overall, I would have said it's value for value is more a philosophy than a step-by-step model, i.e. you don't have to follow each particular point. There's the 3 T's, which is time, talent, and treasure, which is, i.e. value comes in many ways. So you can get it however it is. It's not just monetary. Audience participation. So there's closing the value loop. So this is being able to connect with them and have them acknowledge the ability to acknowledge. Free isn't free. So transparency of how you will be paying one way or another. So if you're not paying via donations, you're going to be paying via advertising or your data. And that's when it gets a little bit weird because it can be hidden. And so you're not exactly sure, i.e., the reasons why Facebook and all sorts of places are having problems nowadays. Subjective price discovery. So I don't know what you value, and I shouldn't try and guess it and force something upon you. This is, you talking about the love song from the Beatles. Play to pay. So the onus is on me to bring the upfront value. No donations or tips. So this is not begging. I was going to say it's almost closer to a threat or a blunt reality. This show can't go on without you helping to support it. The great product. Yeah. So I should be punished for laziness and resting on my laurels. I should be judged for
something interesting you said there. It is true. Well, first of all, I've always loved play to pay. I thought that's always very funny. But it's not so much in the traditional model. You say, give me $5. I'm going to give you a great episode 4 times a month. And in this one, it's, how'd you think we did? Did you enjoy the show? Did you enjoy yourself, sir? Was that worth anything to you? My buddy Mike Malaro, he's been giving private guitar lessons for as long as I've known him, 13 years. He's in Pennsylvania. He finally started doing value for value guitar picking lessons on YouTube. He says, Adam, I should have done this 10 years ago. It's so much more fulfilling. He says, you'd be amazed how many people really want to learn how to play the guitar. And when they learn something from him, how happy they are. So valuable because they may have a different calculation. Shit, it could have been $5,000 in guitar lessons. Mike taught me in $500 worth. It works. It works everywhere in every situation, almost every scenario with digital products. Stuff that you can't hold in your hand. It becomes a little more difficult when it's tangible.
Yeah, for sure. No walled garden, so don't limit your listenership. So I don't know if you particularly subscribe to this, but anyone, anywhere, anytime, and anyhow should relatively be able to access it. And then you need to ask. So the biggest one, constant reminders in a variety of ways, as your audience aren't mind readers. They don't know if you need the support or the value. And then the opposite way is when they provide that, it's a really good indication for you of, hey, that was working, or no, that wasn't working. Because, I think every human would realize when they think something is great and, you thought this one thing and then turns out 5 years later, your partner is like, no, I've always hated those shoes. And you're like, shit, I was wearing them just for you, sort of thing.
Well, people are already creators, certainly of the YouTube variety. By the way, I'm going to start calling journalists creators now too. Hey, you're a content creator. Really good. They are already so trained in asking people to do 2 things. Subscribe, hit that like button, smash the bell, 3 things. People negotiate against themselves. What I hear most, or not that's not much anymore now that it's been proven that it works, but it's certainly years ago, people be like, no one's going to send any money for that. Oh, only Americans do that. They won't do that in Holland. They won't do that in Germany. They won't do that in Australia. They won't do blah, blah, blah. I've heard a million times. They negotiate against themselves. No one's, it's going to suck. It's not going to be any good. Have you tried it? Have you tried it? The first time you get a $50 PayPal, you're like, crap, someone took $50 out of their wallet and paid it to me. And then over time, be like, yeah, well, it's that good. Yeah. And I'm glad that they got that value out of it.
Yeah, there's I've listened to a lot of podcasts, like I was mentioning, because one, because I like seeing it, and when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. I've listened to all the fucking quarantine podcasts that popped up during the quarantine.
Sure.
All sorts Spanish ones, so ones from Latin America and Spanish. I've listened to the young girls talking about random shit. I'm talking about old guys talking about random shit. And,
there's a lot of that.
Yeah. And the one thing that comes out of it, I suppose, is a lot of times they don't know what what's good or not. Like they seem unsure in their own podcast, and they don't value their own podcast. So they'll talk down to it, or they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put an ad in here or something. I kind of dislike it, but please forgive me for the ad or whatnot. And it's like, this is your bloody show, and you're asking forgiveness for making it crap. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's because advertising itself, the interruptive advertising model is, I don't think it's going to be with us very long.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Well, you see that even CNN is now going streaming with CNN Plus. All your favorite morons now streaming. And why? Because, that model is ending. The beauty of cable is the cable companies pay CNN or Fox News, or ESPN is really the biggest. That's probably a better example. I think out of every bill paid, $7 goes to ESPN, whether you watch it or not. So you get on cable, you could be making a couple $1 million a year easily before you even do anything. But that's going away. People are cutting the cable. They're not interested. They're streaming everything. Why? Because there's arguably better variety, but I truly believe the interruptive model is people are sick of it. Yep. And to think that that's a great idea on podcast, I guess arguably it's not honest. We all fast forward through Joe Rogan's 10 commercials. Come on, we all do it. And the advertisers know it. So I'm not quite sure how much longer that will work that well.
Praise be. I agree. 100%. Okay, I think that's enough of value for value. I wanted to jump onto some miscellaneous topics because, like I mentioned when I first came across you, it was the random stuff that I loved. And what's been really fun this past 2 weeks is diving into basically every single podcast news thing I could find on you, and just learning the random stuff. So yeah, here we go. Your selected highlight reel curated by Kyron.
Okay.
Your first job was dubbing a porno. Your alter ego radio voice of the 24-year-old black man, John Holden, when you were, I think, like 14, 15. Mm-hmm. You said you had a motorcycle accident. I actually really want to come back to that because I don't think you've ever talked about that elsewhere. You're the national junior fencing champion in Holland as well. And then, of course, all the MTV big companies, Podfather, creating podcasting and the aviation and whatnot. So there's a lot of really cool stuff. The motorcycle accident though, what happened there? What's the deal with that?
I'm also a pretty good dad. I'm pretty proud of that one.
Of course, please forgive me. Add that onto the.
No, she's 31 now, so my job is done, but it's never really over. Thank God. I've always been into motorcycles. When I was young, growing up kind of in the south of Amsterdam in the farmland type area, had a lot of access to mopeds, and we would soup them up, put big 18 millimeter Delorto carburetors on them. We'd hone out the cylinders, make from 50 cc's to 70 cc's. We put flat heads on. We'd file down the heads. We'd get FS1 hyped up exhaust pipes, and we'd cross them. We'd motocross, but they weren't really appropriate motocross bikes. And at one point, I had a Bernelli. It was a 50 cc racer, like with it had the racing thing around it, and the what do you call that? The
oh man, I'm so
the
bad.
Shield. What I forgot. I've forgotten so much about it. But actually, I could weld. Old school, the electric welding.
Did you take up blacksmithing when you had the castle as well?
Well, now that's interesting you say that, because indeed, when I was in this village, I worked part-time on Saturdays for the blacksmith, and I have in fact shoed many a horse. And that smell when that hot horseshoe goes onto the hoof, man. First of all, to clear up any sinus problems you have for the rest of your life, and you will never forget that smell. So I've never done a full shoeing myself, but I certainly assisted and have hammered one or two in myself. And we even built we built like sidecars and just all kinds of stuff. And at one point, I got into there was the Kreidler class, 70cc Kreidler. It's a German motocross. And I did a trial, so not motocross, but trial, which was, it was just fun to go there and be a part of it, because I'm not really a super daring motocross guy. We weren't doing the crazy shit you see on TV. So fast forward many years later, I was back in the Netherlands, so we're in the 2000s again, and I'm doing a radio show, morning radio show, and there's these guys who are organizing this festival way out in the sticks, which no one ever goes. It's like off limits. It's kind of like, that's the Texas of Holland. You don't want to go there. Which of course I'd like. It's called the Black Cross. And what they do is they have this just huge 3-day festival with 150,000 people. And they have motocross, and but it's, in costumes. They got tanks going over the course, and there's a lot of beer, and people are camping and music, and it's heavy metal, hard rock, just great shit. And like, would you ride in our costume cross? I'm like, hell yeah. Yeah, I'm in. So I got my Elvis suit on, and they gave me a KTM 400. Now, and I'm a guy who I can get around the circuit okay on a 70. So give me a 125. I'm an okay rider, but a 400cc KTM 4-stroke, whole different animal. So we're going, and I hadn't trained or anything. So we're go second time around. I'm tired, and I go up on like the table jump, and I come down kind of hard on the rear wheel, and my hand goes down on the throttle, and bam, the bike just shoots out from under me, and I land flat on my back. And like, man, I could not shit straight for a year. I was really messed up on the inside. And that's when I decided to fly helicopters, because I felt it was less dangerous.
And it probably would be, right? Like aviation are helicopters even safer than planes, for example?
The most dangerous part of all aviation is your drive to and from the airport. That's where you're most likely to get killed.
Yeah.
I love flying. I like it as utility. I'm not a guy who just flies around, just fly around. I've always flown, to get from Amsterdam to Belgium, or, etc. I find it quite safe, quite safe mode of transportation, if you just keep your head about you and know what you're doing.
For sure.
And maintenance is key.
Yeah, definitely. There's a guy here in on the Gold Coast who has a podcast called Gypsy Tales, and he's a real big motocross rider. He actually has probably his show is very similar to Joe Rogan's in a way. It's like the Australian Joe Rogan. And yeah, he has, like, when I was chatting with him, like just the amount of injuries, and then like you were saying, the internal stuff, the one where it's you get a bruise but it lasts for years, the back pain and all that stuff. It's scary scary stuff.
No, it can get, motocross is a full contact sport, and I really had no business doing that on that was my dog, on that equipment, or without proper training. So it's
but if someone offers you an Elvis suit, you'll be down, dude,
you got to go. You got to do it. You just got to do it.
I was listening to a lot of the big app show that you used to have. You were mentioning somewhere in there, I think you said you were reading like 2 big books a week, or a fair chunk. Are you still an avid reader? Do you still read a lot?
Yeah, so I did when iPhone apps just started to become a thing. I did 2 shows. One was called The Big App Show, where I actually filmed apps and talked about the app while it was in portrait mode. So if you would watch this show, it would be just like the app was being demoed on your phone. I felt that, it's what I do, it's like, is it a top 5 apps or something? It was very early in the game. I built the app myself. That was part of the journey, which is like, holy shit, that was a lot of work and heartbreak and trial and error. And I got a featured app of the day, and it was real, and I had ads. This is a long time ago. And then Google cut me off. I was doing like a couple grand a month in ads, and they said, "No, you're asking people to tap on the ad." I said, "Yeah, Well, no, you can't do that. And you can never run any ads on Google ever again. Okay, fine.
And you're like, what's the actual point of an ad then?
Right. Then so then I did the big book show, and this was just really something to do at the time. And I've always liked reading, and I felt that there were no good programs that interviewed authors about their books by people who had actually read their book. So I said, what a concept. And believe it or not, if you get into this, you get a lot of free books, and a lot of authors are very happy to talk to you, and they're very interesting, especially if they recognize very quickly that you read their book. And so I met a lot of really super interesting, intelligent people, very successful writers, just all kinds of, I loved it. And I was reading about 2 books a week. I still read multiple books at the same time. I found myself poorer at finishing most of them. A lot of the books I was reading then were fiction. And so most of what I read now is nonfiction or historical or opinion. And so with opinion, certainly, like after a while, like, I know your opinion. Don't need to hear anymore. And Tina's also, we both like to read a lot, but I would say vacation is when we read like crazy, or if we have some planned downtime and we're just kind of pathetic, jumping in and out all the rest of the time. So not like it was at all.
For sure. Well, any favorites of all time? Any that you come back to or have left a big impression on you?
Oh, man. Gosh. I mean, to be honest, the book that left them, it was a couple of books, I would say, but I read Atlas Shrugged, which is 2,000 pages or whatever.
Yeah,
and I really liked it, and I felt it was a fantastic love story. Dagny and Hank. That just to me was really more than the objectivism and the Ayn Rand part of it. Although funny how sometimes it appears we're living in a lot of those times from that very book at this very moment. Right down to CEOs disappearing, strangely enough.
Yeah. They don't strike me as the type, though, who would be creating their own little utopia.
No, certainly not. I grew up reading Tom Swift. These books were written in the 1890s, I think, is when they first, Appleton, I think is his name. It was Tom Swift and his spaceship, Tom Swift and his underwater cruiser, Tom Swift and his electronic grandmother. So we'd always get into these adventures, but he was an inventor and he could invent stuff. It was kind of like an early Tony Stark in a way, but written very, very early on. And that was very influential on me. Same goes for the Hardy Boys, the Hardy Boys mystery series, the Happy Hollisters. These are books that I grew up with and just loved. And Huckleberry Finn, love that book. I've read it multiple times. Yeah.
Mark Twain's one of my favorite authors. He's, if I ever got a chance to meet someone, it would be him and probably George Orwell.
Yeah. I think Twain looks like a really, really cool dude. Party guy, I'll bet.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And if you haven't read Life on the Mississippi, that's a really good read.
Good one by him.
Yeah. Talking about the steamboats. I never thought I'd be interested in steamboats, but man, the way he wrote that book is.
Yeah. And a lot of Huck Finn as well, on the Mississippi and on his raft.
Definitely. I was going to ask as well, I've heard you talk about being a stickler for words and definitions, and for example, tipping and donations. You're not a fan of those, and when you're with, I think it was like the geeks, email geeks, or something like that. It was a guy you used to work with, and you were talking about email marketing.
Chris,
yeah. And you were sort of discussing like the difference between programming and marketing, and yeah, would you say being like a stickler for certain words or for the way words and language is used comes from reading so much, or is that just another inherent thing?
Yeah, it comes from two different things. One is Dvorak. He taught me to pay closer attention to what is being said often. And the prime example, which is he doesn't use as a lesson, but where I notice it the most, he's accused of having written, "Oh, the mouse, no one will give a shit about it. It's never going to work. It's a dumb idea." But of course, the mouse turned out to be a tool that we use every day. But if you go back and look at what he actually wrote, it was, at that time, there's no evidence anyone wants to use a mouse. At the time, that was completely correct. So that matters. Words matter. Now, when it comes to what we do, which is deconstruct media and listening to particularly people who are being interviewed speaking, man, you can learn a lot if you really listen to what they're saying. And conversely, change your words, change your world. When you start to speak in certain ways about certain things, your world changes. If you speak about yourself poorly and you talk down on yourself and I won't live long, guess what? You're not going to do well. You're not going to live long. So I'm careful with my words because they mean a lot and the words matter. So I take it very seriously. Now, sometimes that's annoying because many people say things that they really just use in
context is
casual
elsewhere,
language. Yeah. And so that's just become a thing that Dvorak and I love to do. If someone's like, "That's so awesome." "Oh, really? Was it really awesome? Like you were in awe of this? This is the one thing that is the top level of awe that you can get." So, that's a bit, but it also, we've seen so many words change in the 15 years we've been doing the show, change their meaning like overnight, like, whoa, okay. Even vaccine, the meaning of vaccine has changed in the dictionary. So, this is important stuff. Language is very, very important.
Yeah.
And Dvorak's the writer, so he has a much bigger vocabulary and more intricate, and it's fun to try and use certain word, like, we try to stop each other from using terms or words that are dumb and useless that just slip in, like right, or, these types of just throwaway words. And then try to use different ones instead of "I think," "I posit." Just try to liven up the conversation. Use some different words.
The hand gesture with that as well.
You saw that, right? "I posit." Yeah, you have to have the head tilt and the hand gesture. That's how it works.
Yeah, I really dig that because that's one of the things that's and it was pretty much me leading it, which was whenever we had a themed episode, we'd pretty much always start off with a definition of a word. So, we'd be looking at justice or law or, poverty or whatever it is. And I'd spend 5 minutes just talking about it. The other fun thing is words that I hate as well and seeing which ones crop up. So there was a period there where I really disliked manifestation, pivoting. Whenever I heard someone say, "Oh yeah, we've got to pivot this," like inwards, I would just rage. And so it's fun seeing words, like just the play with words and whatnot. How
about global warming?
Global warming's up there, yeah.
Climate change.
Just because it changed.
Climate crisis, climate emergency, carbon emergency. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I used to work in the mining industry here in Queensland, and there was
Cooper Pedy?
No, not Cooper Pedy. I was out.
I've been to Cooper Pedy.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you about your
fuckers living in caves over there, man. What's going on with that shit,
dude? There's some weird stuff in the outback. You get out there and you're like, what the hell? How did this get here? But yeah, no. When I was working in the Bowen Basin, so there's in central Queensland in the coal mines. Yeah, there was always like this big hubbub about the carbon tax, like it needs to come through, and then it just disappeared, just went away after one point. It's like, we've done it, we've solved it. But yeah, my dad used to tell me how it was it used to be climate change, it used to be global warming, and then I think he said it was climate change because they started to notice some places getting cooler as well.
Well, actually it started in the 70s as global cooling.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So
we have the notorious hour-long special with Leonard Nimoy, known as Dr. Spock from Star Trek, warning us about how carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases were going to cool the planet into a new ice age. And then that became different.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I guess we should be, if you look at some historical graphs, you should see that we're bang on ready for another ice age. So yeah, I'm always sort of like, and plus I just really like the heat. So I'm like, fuck it, bring more.
I love being in Central Texas, man. We'll be okay here. I can do with a little less heat. It'll work for me.
With I suppose just with learning and storytelling as well, which is, you were talking about the books and how those stories really imprinted on you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, you tell stories excellently. Like you're a fantastic storyteller. Do you think that comes from reading, and does it come from being on the radio and sort of being forced to just speak all the time? Like you can't be silent on the radio.
Yeah, it comes from radio. It comes from my first experience with radio was a Sony AM transistor radio my grandmother gave me. It was a 4-square thing about yay thick. In fact, the first iPod reminded me of it. That's how I came up with the idea of podcasting. Solid state, beautiful leatherette case, 9-volt battery. And I'd listened to basketball games under my pillow when I was 7. And it was that whole, I could hear the squeaking of the sneakers on the court. I could, just the whole thing. It was all, they were explaining to me what was going on in a highly visual sport. And I've never cared about any sports really, kind of, more or less. I mean, I'm not a fanatic. But I was just blown away by that. And I got into radio dramas. I was listening to them. And I don't know, it's always been storytelling, not visual per se. I was never interested in television. That just happened. I could, it's, they said, and you're going to do TV. Like, okay, and I'm happy, but I love being in front of the microphone. In fact, my studio is usually dark. Oftentimes if I'm off on a long tangent, I'll even talk with my eyes closed. It's just, I love it. Yeah, storytelling. Sure. I'd like to, and I have good stories. I've been around a long time. So yeah. I got some stories. I've had a great fucking life. So I have a story about almost anything.
That's the important part. I think that's the, getting out there and actually doing some things, which.
That's my privilege, man. My privilege is I went to Australia and did a documentary. I went to Thailand and did a documentary. I skied all the great slopes. This is all because of the work that I did. And I'm super privileged. Really, I've done some amazing shit most people can only dream of.
Yeah. Any favorites from your travels? You just mentioned you've been over in a bunch of places. Any standouts?
Australia is topical now because I was there in 1990. It was very different.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just because it's like indulge in some Aussie remembrances. There's an Aussie podcast. we all like hearing about ourselves.
Well, so my experiences were, and I remember flying to Melbourne first, then Sydney, then the Outback. Did the Outback quite a bit, like Williams Creek, I believe. Is that the smallest town in the universe?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably the most remote. I barely know a bunch of the, I've been to some places, but yeah.
We did the mail truck for 3 days that goes through all the stations. And you stop just along the way and you throw a fucking dingo on the Barbie and smoke that shit up. So I remember sitting, we had tents in the Outback at night, looking up and going, holy fuck. because there's no ambient light. It was just the Milky Way was ripped open right before my very eyes. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's just so stunningly beautiful.
Could you see the satellites going across?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course. You could see them with the naked eye, just flying right over.
So that was crazy to me. When I saw that, I went, whoa.
So that was super fun. The spinsters and bachelor's ball, spinsters and bachelor ball. That was a mess. You know, I backed the ute the next morning. We shot off some carbide buses of milk cans and shit. We rolled around in the mud, and I still had my cup tied with a string to my body. I'm like, okay, you guys know how to play hard. It was quite interesting, that experience. So what I liked about it certainly then was it seemed to have a mix of American kind of convenience, commercialism, 24/7 economy, if you will. It had a lot of the British kind of properness type things that I also like. And it had something Dutch. It had the coziness of the Dutch. And that makes sense, you know, if you look who's in Australia and where you come from.
Well, Van Diemen's Land was its original name.
Right.
The
and then I took that train to Perth, that 24-hour deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Asia Pacific. Sorry?
There's another train called the Garn.
No, this is the Asia Pacific line, I think. Okay. Yeah. And it was 24 hours to Perth. And that's a shitty ride, man. There's no reason to take that train. I saw a lot of nuclear wasteland. I saw some satellite shit that had crashed down. You know, it's like, okay. So I didn't, that was my portion of that documentary. So I did not do the North or much of the coast. And it was a little bit of Sydney, a little bit of Perth. But I just really loved the people. I had a great time. I cannot believe how any human being can consume VBs in the quantities that I was offered them. And like, you got to stop with these oil cans now? No. It was a very, very good time. I really, really enjoyed it. And so I know, you know, having spoken to so many people who are in Australia, and I have close contact with many, that we certainly had a view of Australians that is somewhat skewed by Mad Max and Crocodile Dundee, etc. And so again, we're looking at things at a distance and saying, you know, well, you idiots should have given up your guns. Like, you know, like, I don't know if that really makes all the difference. But I just see what's happening in Australia and New Zealand. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it doesn't compute with the people that I think you are.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. Like, you know, it depends on your location as well. So I'm here in Brisbane.
Of course, it's the same here. Yeah.
In Queensland, which I guess is sort of the Texas of America.
No, it is. But they've recently been doing a little crazy stuff there too. They've been cracking down more.
Yeah. There's I don't personally get into too much of the COVID, and like, honestly, like, whilst I like what you've done with the value for value, I really don't listen to No Agenda, because I learned a long time ago that the news media is bullshit, and I just wanted no part of it. So even the deconstruction of it, I find like, I don't know, I don't need to know about this.
I got you.
But yeah, like, you know, I don't particularly care. I don't think people should be forced to get vaccines and whatnot, and then getting the restrictions so that they can't enter places because they don't have it. That seems
how about putting people in camps? I mean, this contact tracing business that's, you know, hunting you down and arresting you, or you can take the COVID cab, I guess, but basically taking to a camp for 2 weeks. I mean, that's pretty severe, man. That's serious.
Yeah, well, you know, chatting with Tiago and him getting a podcasting ban as well. That you know, that one hits home for me, because I'm like, what the fuck? That makes no, you know, what's he gonna do? What, like, just gonna talk? That's absurd. Yeah. Anywho, I was going to ask as well. So I actually have quite a strong affinity for Latin America, hence my big map behind me.
I noticed. Yes, I noticed.
South America. Have you traveled much to Mexico? You're right next to it in being in Texas.
I've actually only been a few times. I never really wanted to go, and I've been. We had a big Japan trip planned. We've been saving for it, and we're going to go 3 weeks, and it was going to be fantastic. And then COVID hit, and so after like a year of not going, we were like, okay, we need to go somewhere. So we went to an overpriced resort in Cabo, and so it really had nothing to do with Mexico at all. It was just a great resort, and we're out of the country, and of course there were Mexican people working there, which was really nice. But we just chilled like a luxurious beach resort should be done. I've not been to South America much at all, if I think I can recall anything really. No, it's all on the list. I remember you were
on a boat off of Venezuela somewhere. I remember.
Oh no, that was near Bonaire. So yeah, which is of course north of Venezuela. You need a little bigger boat to get there. So yeah, Bonaire, Curacao, but that's kind of off on the side there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I got to travel through in 2018, 2019, and yeah, there's some beautiful places there, definitely. Colombia especially is like you were saying, you can get a bad impression of, well, maybe not bad, but just a very simplistic impression of Australia from that stuff. Same with Colombia. Like everyone, what people think of is drugs and Pablo Escobar and stuff, and it's like that's nothing of the country. It's got so much else going on. And languages as well. So this was getting back to your, I suppose, learning style. I remember there was a great episode you had with, I think it was called Chat with Audrey. It was about 10 months ago. And you were talking about, well, you're fluent in Dutch and English, and you somewhat know German, French, and Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
German comes almost naturally with Dutch. I mean, it sounds crappy when I speak German, but a German could understand me and vice versa. French, I was surprised when we went to Paris about 4 years ago, right after the Bataclan massacre. I was surprised how well I could communicate in my French. It was also, I think, that all the French were like, hey, American tourists, thanks for coming, man. I'm going to be nice to you, so I'm not going to bitch at you like I normally do when you try to speak French. And I spoke a little bit of Hebrew for a while, but I completely lost that. I just tried to learn, and I got to the basics. That's about it. But
yeah,
Dutch is fluent, and English is.
Do you have an affinity for languages? Do you it sounded like you went out of your way to learn Hebrew, which is so obscure. There's no practicality in that, really.
With most things, when it comes to learning, except for when there's a certificate like flying or ham radio or something like that, I usually get the basics enough to get by, and that's it. Dutch was survival. I entered Dutch school in 5th grade. I didn't speak Dutch, so I just learned. And it's interesting though. I think it opens up other functions in the brain, so you can grasp things. I can understand programming code pretty well, but again, I've just done enough to get by, and I certainly, I can't. I'm not a developer. I never will be. That's just another language to me. I'm sure I could be a lawyer. I've always toyed with the idea. Just another language, just the language of law. But do I really have an affinity? Do I really want to learn? No. If I have to, I can learn. I can pick stuff up real quick.
Yeah. Would you say you're an auditory learner? Is that how you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Also, if I'm with someone who is not a native English speaker, I can learn to communicate with that person really quickly with just understanding different types of words, some French, some German, English. I can communicate with my brother-in-law, who is actually, his English has gotten a lot better. Even when he's speaking Italian, if he goes slow enough. Swedish sounds kind of like Dutch when you're drunk, so I can South Afrikaans, I can speak South African, even though it's not quite the same as Dutch. Flemish, which is and I know enough of the local dialect slangs that I can always get a smile.
Yeah, the beautiful thing of I think unlocking at least one language is you can sort of get by with a lot of others as well. So I'm learning German at the moment, and knowing English and Spanish together has actually been really, really helpful because so many words just directly translate or so close. Like dog in German is Hund, hound. Okay, that's really easy. And then there'll be something like cloudy or foggy in German, which is neblig. And that is really, not anything close to foggy in English, but in Spanish, it's nebloso. So it's,
very
it's
close.
Like,
Yep.
Yes, I've got it. I can get this. So it's,
once
you have a couple, one or two, it's
then you can comprehend a lot more than you think. I agree.
Yeah. And do you think you have a somewhat different persona in when you're speaking Dutch, for example? Because I noticed that with Spanish. I sort of my ability and the way I think is really dictated by the language. And so I notice I will have an affinity or appreciation for more things, i.e. I would say I'm almost more emotional in Spanish because, that's what they do well. They have 9 words for what would be one word of gloomy in English, for example.
Yeah. I think because I know the culture of the Netherlands as well, when I speak Dutch, I take on a different way of communicating, perhaps, but I'm always very happy to throw my English words, Americanisms, because I just always throws people off guard, like, oh, okay, and just throw something in there. Or if I can't recall if I can't come up with a Dutch phrase. In Dutch, everything is kind of reversed. So you say, I've been to the market. In Dutch is, I have to the market been. So that kind of screws me up sometimes. But I think when I'm speaking Dutch, I'm almost thinking Dutch if I have to. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. With regard to some of the childhood remembrances, funnily enough, your story learning Dutch is really similar to Juan learning English. He came here when he was 9, so that would be grade 3 or 4, I believe. And he actually learnt English by just reading the dictionary. He was because he couldn't communicate in school, and so he was just learning in like detention or something like that. So that was pretty funny. But you've talked, I guess, a lot about introspection, and I've had real moments like this as well, where looking at something from either my past or childhood sort of indicates of like what I'm doing now. It's like an indication that I'm on the right path or doing something good. So just for example, there was a lot about censorship and decentralization. I actually learned from this guy here. His name was Rushfi. He was an American guy, and I saw him getting canceled. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. He was getting kicked off Amazon for his books that he was writing.
Oh yeah,
PayPal.
Yeah, I remember. Sure.
Yeah. He's got a interesting book called Free Speech Isn't Free, which was about him somewhat getting cancelled in Canada when he went to give some talks there. Advertising and money. So funnily enough, I bought this so impression on me. It was I bought this little toy when I had to be like 7 or 8 years old, and I saw it advertised on TV, and it was sort of like a version of Doctor, the game where you pull something down and it buzzes. It was like a rotating cone version of that. I was like, man, this is the coolest thing out, blah, blah, blah. All the people in the ads having fun, cost $50 or something ridiculous. And I played with it twice. The first time I was like, oh, that was okay. The second time I was like, this is so shit. This is, where are all my friends having fun? It's not like the ad at all. So that taught me like the value of money and also of advertising and how it can, I'm not going to say trick you, but can be deceptive, give you the wrong impression. And then the last one was just like independence. So I've had the opportunity, funnily enough, on the podcast in mid 2020. So this was even before podcasting 2.0. I actually was chatting with a guy in, I think it was Sydney, who was creating his own podcast app addressing many of the same issues that you and Dave are solving. And unfortunately, COVID sort of stopped his plans in their track, and so he's one of the ones we've lost to having to become a lawyer again to feed his family and whatnot.
No, that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. But I see all of these moments and I'm like, man, that says so much about why I have a dislike for advertising, for example, or why I'm relatively minimalist. I sort of understand the value of money. I've heard you talk about this before, and I'm just really curious as to, and it can be related to a couple of topics I talked about: decentralization, advertising, money, interesting people, audio, whatever it is. Are there moments where you look back and you're like, man, that speaks volumes about me as a person? That one instance almost dictates or like really shows who I am today.
Yeah, I think there's a number. I think there's a number of examples. You might actually start to write a book, and I realized I still had another chapter to live, so I can't finish it. And then I wanted to make into a theatrical work. It's just, anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of moments. The broadcasting thing has just been in me from very, very early on, sitting around with tape recorders when I was like 6 or something, 5, 6 years old. I had my own tape recorder. I bought it, with my whatever allowance I had from the guy up the street who was 13, but and I could never really get it to work. And he had to show me how to put the screwdriver in and jiggle the batteries. And I remember like, oh my God, I sound like a girl. That's horrible. I can't believe that's my voice. To which I immediately started working on my voice, making sure it sounds much lower than it did at the time. And learning how to use it. My dad had a lot of recording gear around. Really, the Radio Shack 101 projects is what really got me most interested in really the technical side, the transmitter side. And it's this project box that had all these components, and you connect wires in between these components. You have a little booklet that says, here's how you create a crystal FM, a crystal AM radio. And you could, tune in the radio, and you just connected these wires and the thing worked. And then there was an FM transmitter. And so I built that. And then I started learning about antennas and how you can extend your reach. And so all of these things, it was just such a natural progression. Then I got into CB radio, I had antennas everywhere, a lot of broadcasting. And I'm really a pirate. That is where I come from. That's what they're doing on television or on radio. I'm going to create my own thing here. I'm going to do it myself. And we did it in a different way with a lot of the radio work I did. We did pirate radio, and then we were on the government airways where we came in as pirates, knocking shit down and doing crazy stuff. And so there's so much of my dad in me, so much of his timing, his view on the world. Both my parents were highly intelligent and highly educated, had very interesting government jobs. My whole family is government. It's I'm the black sheep. So they're intelligence or military or all kinds of stuff, and the lines are very blurred.
I was going to say that's exactly what the true CIA person would say, that they're the black sheep of the military family.
That's funny. That's very funny. No, I'm, my cousins many of them have clearance, and they can't talk about stuff me when I'm in the room, and but my uncle was a huge guy at the CIA. So, all of these encounters, these people, Don, he was also a diplomat, was an ambassador, and all of these people have influenced my life. And it's like, this is honestly, if I look back, I see the path, and and with few exceptions, I just walk the path, and the path is I'm broadcasting and I'm building the pipes as I go. And that's been my whole career. And it's not just one moment. It's such a clear path. I wouldn't know anything else to do. It's what I've done since I was a boy. And I've just kept doing it in different forms all the way through. And now I probably a lot because of the experiences I've had in mainstream and the knowledge of technology that I've garnered. I know that it's a lot more fun to do it this way. I've been to the mountaintop, son. I've seen the promised land. It sucks up there. It's no good. The mainstream, this is it. This is where it's at. This is where it's fucking cool. You're sitting in your house doing this shit. Would you start when you want? You do it when you want. You say what you want. You know, you get to interact with the audience when you want and when they want. No middlemen. No middlemen. It's great.
Yeah, that's a beautiful philosophy. I really, and I think that's what attracts, you know, people like me and everyone else who's in the, and I guess like the podcasting 2.0
you see what the centralized stuff is. You see what Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and you see what it is. It's a mess. Yeah, it's not very useful anymore. It's just it's made everyone sick in the head.
For sure. For sure.
Back to the days of the forum where you could just have a flame war, and that was cool. But now it's like, your head explodes.
Yeah. I was in that guy Roosh's forum back in the day. He was a pickup artist, which was a lot of the reason why it was getting cancelled. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah, there was some amazing stuff in there. It was like a unique place, which actually sort of gets onto a question I had about picking winners and scenes. So like you were saying, you've been really good at, granted, you're 10 years early on most things, so you need to work on that. But you seem to be really good at picking winners and scenes. How do you appreciate it when you're in the moment? So when you're in MTV, when you're starting podcasting, when you're doing podcasting 2.0, do you have any ways where you can, appreciate the moment more than just letting it fleet by?
Well, certainly in the last 5 years, I live very much and really appreciate every single moment. The last 24 months has been spectacular time to be a podcaster. I mean, the contact with the audience, the personal interaction has been just like nothing I've ever witnessed in my life in broadcasting ever before. And I know every podcaster who has an audience has received these emails and how they feel and what's going on. And it's just, I live so in the moment. What's important for me is to step out. So it's, I'm always, with what I do with no agenda, certainly I'm always looking at, what's going on in the world, around the world. I'm researching, what does this mean? Is China really confiscating Uganda's port? Spoiler, no, airport. That it's important for me to just step out and do something completely different. Hence, I got my ham radio license. I'll just spend a day setting up an antenna, or I'll dive deep into some project and just work on something else and just work on something completely different. That's what's important to me, is to step out of being in the moment, because I'm very much in the moment.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. I guess that might even be just how our brains work differently, because I'm probably the opposite. I'm really good at creating a routine and sticking to it. I'm not the most spontaneous. Like, I would honestly feel bad for creators and artists if I ever got that label attached to me. Just listen to one of our episodes on Juan and I talking about the metrics and things that we measure. Like, we're engineers for sure. We're engineers who are podcasting. And
it's funny because we have a dog now, and so now we get up every morning to feed her, etc. And my wife and I are like, it's like Groundhog Day, man. We used to just kind of wake up. Right now, it's like it's Groundhog Day. There's that thing again. There's the dog again, and there's the food bowl. It's like, oh wow, this is interesting.
Always on time. Always on time. Yeah. So for me, it's almost the opposite. I need to break the routine to be able to appreciate the moment, because one of the things about routine is you just do it on automatic. You do it all the time. You do your stretching, you do your learning, you do your study, whatever it is. So yeah, that's probably just a difference between like a more creative, artistic mindset and the engineer in
Yeah,
deep
although
inside of me.
as I said, show days when I'm compiling the show and putting it all together, I have rails. I got to be in those rails, otherwise the show will not be ready to go.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I
Yeah,
do
so,
understand.
and
It's like a
and
checklist. It's a pilot. I can follow a checklist. That'll
yeah,
keep you alive.
yeah, and I express my artistic and creative endeavors by putting my face on women's faces. So
Yes, yes, it's another way of doing it. Yes.
uh, you were talking about your final chapter of your book, and I was listening to a real obscure episode of something called Podcast 411,
Oh
and
my.
this was before you were in this interview, this conversation before podcasting was even in iTunes, and it dawned on me the gravity of what you did. Like truly, for the first time, I appreciated like on demand. Holy shit! You don't have to be listening to that, conforming your schedule to the radio, to the TV, to the newspaper, like whatever it is. You have the opportunity now to do it when you want, and that it really dawned on me just how big that was, and why it was such a big thing, and not just for podcasting, but on how it's streaming with Netflix and with being able to record on your Foxtel or whatever device it is. And I wanted to ask, do you think the value for value with the micropayments, with the sound money, with the royalties that can, you can use that system for, do you feel that really is comparable to what you've done with podcasting, like podcasting 1.0 and on demand and using the RSS feed? Is because I have heard you say you'd sort of wanted to be remembered for value rather than anything else.
So the final chapter is working with this group, and this group is large, and it's comprised of 28 to 35-year-olds, I would say, give or take on either side. It's the older millennial who are trying to create a lot of new networks and structures for a world they want to live in. And they've kind of said, all right, bugger off with all your other shit that is, that's broken, clearly. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 29, so I'm bang right in the middle.
Right. So you grew up, you were young in the 90s. Maybe you subconsciously saw the first Gulf War, and then we had 9/11, very traumatic.
Yeah, I remember 9/11, and what I remember from that is that I was really pissed off that they canceled my Dragon Ball Z, which was on at the same time. You just didn't understand the gravity of what was happening.
Right. Yeah, and then the media was just bombarding you with that. Then we invaded the wrong country and all this bullshit, and then we get the financial crisis, and don't worry, we're going to fix it all. And then a lot of people came out of college and university with $100,000 in debt and a $12 an hour job, and like, what the fuck? I got gypped here. I was promised something else, and you were sold a bill of goods. And the more I look around, I see everything's corrupt. The education system's corrupt. Banking is the number one problem, completely corrupt. That's what's going to take us all down. Media is corrupt. All these things are corrupt. So what are the two things I can influence, and where can I do my best work? Well, I can build upon something that we already did, which was podcasting, which, as it turns out, is one of the last true places for free speech, for freedom of speech, because it's decentralized and you can't really take everything and everybody down. So that needed to be protected, and it needed to be extended to the financial part. That's literally how podcasting 2.0 started. Now, what came out of it, once we uncorked this decade of creativity, because no one said, fuck Apple, fuck Spotify, let's just go do it, which is, again, that's typical for me. They're like, I got nothing to lose. Let's go do it, boys. Come on. And, setting up the independent index, offering the API, again, doing this all value for value. This is the final chapter. This is going to show how the whole thing works. The whole thing is value for value, but it has a super sexy component, which is Bitcoin. And so even though none of us are really making enough money to buy more than a sandwich or two, that value is going to go up. So at a certain point, if we just hang on to these sandwiches that we've collected, that might actually be worth something someday, and it will be owned by the collective, and managed by the collective, which is already happening. I mean, yeah, sure, Adam's important for noise making, Dave's important for development, but look at all the people who've come into this space, including yourself, all showing a way forward. You're doing half of your show, an hour on value for value. So it's really not that important what I'm remembered for. It's important that we do something and that we make something happen. And I think, so maybe I'm 15 years early this time, because 15 years ago, we were coming up with conspiracy theories about the shit that's happening right now, including your FEMA camps and including the infectious diseases and the vaccine scams and all this shit. And it's coming true. So, central bank digital currencies, control, tracking, all this shit. Yeah, it's coming. It's unfolding before our very eyes. So we might as well, because all totalitarian regimes collapse. This is not going to work, unless you can really kill a lot of people effectively very quickly. This is a very short-sighted strategy, I think, and I hope. But we need to have our own networks. We need to have our own way to speak and communicate and compensate and trade. And so those two things, podcasting and Bitcoin, strangely enough, sometimes it's Bitcoin and guns is all you need. No, Bitcoin and podcasting, I think that'll do just nicely. And that is all based, that will only grow and build with value for value, because advertising is the lever. That is the mechanism of cancel culture, you see. It's because of going to advertisers, taking away your livelihood. When you're getting paid directly from the people who want to support you, and it's impossible to interrupt that payment, now you're cooking. That's the mission. It's there. It's working. It's established. Now we got some refinements and improvements to do, which will take a while, but we've built the networks. The networks are working, and many of them, most of it is decentralized by nature. So we're building something that is just going to be kick-ass for the future, and hopefully not as necessary as the robustness that we've built it with.
Man, that's beautiful. I think the thing that really draws me in is, you look at the stark reality. You're not afraid of doing that. You're optimistic, but then the most important bit is you just go out and change it. You decide to fix it, to actually do things in the world. This is why I admire you as greatly as I do. George Orwell and Mark Twain, they were people who went out and did shit. George Orwell got shot through the throat fighting for the communists. And
I've had partners all along, Dave Weiner with podcasting originally, Dave Jones, man, we've been friends for 10 years. This is something that has been coming to us without us really knowing it, but we've always known one day one of these kooky ideas will strike. It's always been, hey, Dave, I got an idea. Let's do this. And he'll go, okay. And we'll build it. It's like, all right, anyone else? Hey, look, but we have something really cool over here. People like crickets. No, nothing. And we use it for ourselves, our own software. And it's been really advantageous and super time consuming, or time saving, I should say, for my production work. And then, this idea, and I just laid it out to Dave, and he said, okay, let's do it. And he started with the index while I was learning Lightning. And then we just kind of merged it all in. And now we're off, we're a real thing. It's a real thing. Podcasting 2.0 is established and growing. These things always take time, and there will be a couple of super hits along the way that's going to, jerk everything forward. And that'll just show up. You can't manufacture it. It'll show up.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, you've made me incredibly wealthy because you've shown me the value of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So you've made me wealthy in that respect. But more importantly, I think the ethos of the value for value and podcasting 2.0 has made, honestly, it's made me a better person. I notice changes in myself where I'm behaving in a way that I think is better for the world. And I really do want to thank you for that. You always end, or one of the podcasting 2.0 by asking what you can do for others. I want to ask you, what can I do for you, man? What can I do to help this along?
What you just said is very kind, and I appreciate that. And I think it's interesting that when you really get into Bitcoin, there's a lot of values in Bitcoin, and that ethos and that community as well. And Bitcoin wouldn't be where it is today without people understanding value and time preference, etc. So these are really important things that people are slowly starting to understand. So all you can do is exactly what you're doing. Just keep on doing more of it, because you're creating great content. It's outstanding product. I love the long form. I love how the amount of homework you do is recognizable. Also from other shows that I've heard, you take time to think about, like outside, all these things that all makes a difference for what I'm hearing, and I appreciate that you've thought about that. But for moving everything forward, just keep doing it, man. You got the two things. You got Bitcoin and you have podcasting, and you're talking about it. And that's what I appreciate. And how you've embraced many of the features is it's really cool. It really is. And I appreciate the support of podcasting 2.0, because you're a frequent booster.
Yeah, that's it. That's well, yeah. Once again, we're just trading compliments now, but I do appreciate that, Adam. And like I said, since I saw you on Joe Rogan, honestly, there's been like one of the fanboy moments for me having you on. So I really do want to thank you for that.
Well, and Joe Rogan, man, he re-upped my credentials. I am very grateful to him. That was I would have never known about you, but bar for him. So no.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a super, super important moment for me, and it came right along with all this other stuff. So luck is where preparation meets opportunity, and I think I hit the crossroad.
Nice. Perfect way to end it, Adam. Is there anything you want my listeners to do to help support, or any way you want to direct them?
Support your podcaster. You can do it in many ways. And maybe try out a new podcast app, newpodcastapps.com. They're fun.
That's it. Look for the ones with value in it, and get into the spirit of value for value. Perfect, man. Thank you so much for appearing on. And I really hope to be able to do this in person someday.
Oh, me too. You're welcome in Texas any day. And as soon as they let heathens like me into your country, I'd love to come down and say hi.
Absolutely. All right. We'll end it there. Thank you so much.